extend him. In honor of Cleveland Guardian Stephen Kwan, welcome into episode number 38 of Cleveland Sports Realm. I am Kevin alongside my co-host Jerome. Behind the camera is producer Eric. We can see him, you can't. Jerome, how are we doing as we record this Wednesday evening?
I actually had no clue how you were going to start that show, but that was probably your best opening ever.
Thank you.
That was really good. That was really good. Yeah, extend them. Don't trade them. Enough of this. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to all the Guardian stuff, and we've got a full show tonight. Busy program here. Loaded up this evening. We're going to talk about the football, the baseball, the training.
A little bit of golf, I think. We're going to
get the golf in there too. I mean, it's a loaded program this evening. So if you're tuning into this tomorrow, as we're recording this Wednesday evening, you listen Thursday or wherever you may listen, your car, your house, wherever. You got an hour loaded stuff coming at you, so let's get right to it.
Yeah, and we're recording in the middle of the Cleveland Guardians Baltimore Orioles game where, Jerome, you just informed me a few minutes ago that the Guardians took the lead.
They did take the lead 2-1 as of right now. We'll obviously keep you updated on that.
Yeah.
The great one himself, Jose Ramirez, with a double to get Kwan to third, and Manzardo with a 2-run single to get them both home. And Jose, as great of a base runner as he is, got a perfect jump on it, of course. Yeah. And they have a 2-1 lead.
What inning, as we're talking right now, what inning are they in? I haven't had a chance to look at the game yet.
Well,
I know by the time this airs, the game will be long over, so this may be a moot point for the listeners.
Yeah, well, you know what, Kevin? You want to know, so we'll let you know.
Yeah, please.
And Eric's service here is just terrible at the home studio. No,
producer Eric.
No, anyhow, bottom of the fifth. Okay.
Bottom of the fifth. Okay. So
2-1.
Nice. Okay, halfway through, and we've doubled them up. 2-1.
All right. Yep. So, and if we'll get to it later, but folks got us, including me, who wiped this thing out. It may not just be over yet.
Yeah, it never was.
Oh, we're gonna get there too because you make me mad already. We're only 2 minutes into this thing, and you got me all sorts of angry over here. Let's talk about something else.
That's going to make us more angry. And let's start with the Browns.
Yeah, let's start with something that makes everybody angry. Universal universal anger.
Unless you live in Pittsburgh, Baltimore, or Cincinnati.
Yes, but for most of our listening audience, if we could talk tonight, that'd help too.
Yeah.
Most of our listening audience, universal anger for a quarter century. All right, Kevin, they did come back, and they're all in the building, and they worked out today.
Yeah.
And we can officially say that first workout commences it. The Browns are underway.
They are underway, and I believe the only person that was not in attendance is the one that's facing some legal trouble right now, correct?
Well, you have a couple guys on PUP. Of course, the Albatross.
Well, sure, the Albatross.
Nobody wants him around anyway. It's probably God's blessing that he's on PUP.
Yeah.
And then Mike Hall, who we do want back.
Yeah, we do.
And they said he's progressing well. David Bell on PUP, which I think is actually a bigger deal than people think because he's probably in line to battle Jamari Thrash for that third receiver position, I would imagine. Now, we're going back to the Kevin system, so I don't envision them using 3 receivers all that much anyhow.
No.
But still an important role relatively because and then who else was on PUP? And then obviously, like you said, Quinshon Judkins,
right.
as you made reference to. But I believe everybody else did work out today. Oh, 2 guys who didn't. Jordan Hicks was not there for a personal reason, undisclosed. And then David Njoku not there. Condolences to him. His father passed away.
I did read that the other day, yeah.
So
condolences to David.
So the Chief was not in attendance either today. But let's talk about it a little bit, Kevin. The quarterback tracker and the media videos, the grainy training camp videos, just like we get in baseball when I get so excited for spring training. I do get a little excited in football, too. They were in full force, whether you look at Darrell Reuter, Mary Kay Cabot, any of them, they all had it out there. And the quarterback trackers were in full force, and Flacco did go 5 for 5. I believe Pickett went 6 for 7. Gabriel went 6 for 7, and my guy, rough first day for him, 3 for 8.
Shador, yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, it's a 5th round pick. That's what we got to expect out of a 5th rounder.
So anyway, obviously we're not going to put too much into that. It was the very first workout. Only thing that I have to take away from that first workout is, like I said, I did put those numbers out there just so our listening audience knew them. They're kind of irrelevant, as you kind of made mention of right there. But I think what we took away from the guys who did speak to the media this year or today, Kevin Stefanski and a couple of headline players, of course, Batonio spoke, Myles Garrett spoke, Denzel Ward spoke. They all talked about a much more physical training camp. The coach and the players did.
Good.
And I think that's something that the Browns went so far in the other direction, and I think it could have been as to why, under the Stefanski era, with such a soft camp. And look, the Players Association's made camps across the league soft nowadays, right? That's 100% facts. And the bottom line is, you talk to guys who played in the 90s and early 2000s, and they think camp's a joke nowadays.
Yep.
And even you can make it more physical, but you can't go crazy, because then you're violating league policy, and we don't need the Browns to get in trouble. They already are much of a mess on their own. So, but what these guys all talked about is a more physical camp, and I think that might be a good thing, because in the Stefanski era overall, we've seen them kind of have a lighter camp, especially the last couple of years.
Yeah, going down to the Greenbrier.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the last couple of years, what you've had, like we said with this lighter camp, is you've had a lot of soft tissue injuries. So they fired people. They revamped the whole sports science department out down there. And from the looks of it, or from the sounds of it, they plan on having a more physical camp. And now that remains to be seen. They can't get into pads until next week. But the coach even saying that they are going to tackle to the ground 1 or 2 days this year. So what do you think of all that?
I actually love that. I love that, because I think it's one of those things, and obviously this isn't Browns specific, but I feel like just because they're the team that we watch week in and week out, we see it more. But I feel like the more physicalness that you bring into practice, you're going to bring that into game day too. Because in practice, when you're being physical with teammates, those are guys that you actually enjoy being around, that you're being physical, you're hitting them a little bit harder. When it comes to game day, you're going to be hitting the other team. The other team, you're not supposed to like those guys. You're going to be hitting them a little bit harder than the guys that you're hitting in practice. So I like the more physical camps. Now, I don't want them trucking each other, the helmet to helmets, where you're looking at injuries in camp. I think there's that line that you cross.
Don't go too far the other direction from where you came from.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to go from too soft to being too hard, I guess, for lack of a better term. So you got to find that balance. But yeah, you got to be physical in practice, because you're going to be physical on game day.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the main takeaway. Kevin Stefanski spoke for 16 minutes. To be quite frank, I listened to the whole 16 minutes in preparation for the podcast, and I took about 1-2 second clip out of it that I thought was worthwhile. That was that with Quinshon Judkins not available right now, and Kevin Stefanski did start with saying that, and he said, I got nothing to say about it. He goes, we try our best to, encourage players to behave off the field. We have our player engagement department. He spoke at length about that. But as far as the actual when Quinshon Judkins has a chance to return the field, he didn't want to go down that avenue. He left it all to Andrew Berry, who will speak tomorrow.
Yeah, and Kevin Stefanski's been known for doing this over the last 5 years, and that's saying a lot without saying anything at all.
Right.
So it doesn't shock me that in a 16-minute clip, and unfortunately I wasn't able to see it yet, but that just doesn't surprise me that you weren't really able to take a lot away from him, because you really can't take a lot away from him ever.
Right. So what I did get out of it is, like we said, hopefully Barry, who's also known for doing the same thing, he'll probably push it down the curb too. Now, Stefanski left it all on Andrew Berry's plate to address the Judkins situation, which is obviously the elephant in the room, kind of hanging over the Browns right now as they enter camp.
Yeah, I know we talked a lot about it last week, but it's going to be really interesting to see how that all unfolds.
Right, absolutely. So we'll see if Barry gives us anything to take away tomorrow. The other thing that Kevin said is right now, I believe it was Scott Petrak of the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, and he asked Stefanski, is it safe to say that Jerome Ford is going to be RB1 going in as of right now? And Kevin said, I think that would be a good assumption, Scott.
Yeah, and I think we alluded to that last week, because you're not going to have your fourth-round rookie come in after – Jerome Ford's going to be a third-year pro at this point in his career. So,
right.
Obviously, and he's been the backup running back. He's been basically the RB1, the last few years, just with the injuries to Nick Chubb. He's basically been the RB1 for this team the last couple of years, it seems like. So he's a guy that they trust. Now, moving into the Stefanski system full-time, I don't know if I really trust him running in between the tackles, 50% of the plays that the Browns call. You know, I would love that bigger bruising back like the Quinshon Judkins that obviously won't be there for the first few games. At least we're thinking right now. So
right, that's all. We have no idea. Right.
And I am interested to see how they're going to rotate Dylan Sampson in right now, because I figured that he was probably going to be the number 2 back anyway. I just feel like Jerome Ford was probably looking at being that RB3, but like I said, you're not going to put a rookie that was at the end of or at the beginning of day 3. You're not just going to put him in as the day 1 starter in a pro style offense.
Well, to your point too, I think they drafted Dylan Sampson to be like a third down back, pass catcher. So I don't think his role changes at all. Now Ford, his role probably does change, as you just pointed out. Now, we've seen Jerome Ford have an interesting career up to this point, right? Because he has had situations where he takes a lot of losses. You know, they pound it with him. He loses yards. And then whenever you're ready to just wave Jerome Ford's white flag, he busts off like a 50-yard run out of nowhere. But a lot of times that happens outside zone. How much of that is he going to be doing? To your point, that remains to be seen.
No, the only time I can really remember him doing that was like the opening play in Indianapolis in 2023. It was just HB dive right up the middle, and he wasn't touched at all. He just ran right up the gut and ran 75 yards for a touchdown. And that's, I believe it was him also that was on maybe that run that we always look back on in 2023 in Baltimore, the one that kind of sealed that game for the Dustin Hopkins field goal where the pile was pushed. Where the pile was pushed. You know, that was another one that was right in between the tackles. But again, a lot of that was the offensive line carrying him as opposed to him making those yardage. So, like you said, though, Jerome, we have seen Jerome Ford be able to make some plays out of nothing. I mean, even that run in Cincinnati or in Pittsburgh, excuse me. You know, I'm talking a lot about 2023 right now. That was such a magical year. But that game in Pittsburgh where he had run right, there was nothing there, bounced it back and ran 75 yards and was basically 2 inches short of the goal line.
The whole way up the Steelers sideline.
That wasn't in the style of the offense. That was an outside handoff that ended up going the complete opposite way. Obviously, that wasn't the game plan of that run. But, yeah, we see Jerome Ford make some plays out of nothing sometimes.
And then the other guy there is Pierre Strong. Now, he's been around just as long as Jerome Ford. They traded him for him before the 2023 campaign. And Pierre's a guy who – you like what you see, but his biggest problem has been holding on to the football.
Yeah.
He has consistent fumble issues, but I actually think he has better running back vision than Ford. Sampson, of course, remains to be seen. But I think this opens the door for Pierre Strong to have opportunity again.
Yeah, and Pierre Strong's one of those players that when he has the ball and he gets the momentum going and he's running full speed, he looks like he would be – like you're gonna feel it when you go to tackle him. He runs very, very hard. But again, Jerome, you know, you brought it up, and this was one of those things that we heard from Patriots fans when we acquired him, was that it was the ball carrying that was always the problem. They loved the 4 to 5 yard tough runs that he would bust out, the occasional 12-yarder where he's, you know, carrying the pile. But again, you how many yards are you gonna sacrifice in order to hold on to that football? You know?
Well. And maybe that's something they worked at. Maybe Deuce Staley worked with him in the offseason, of course.
Yeah, hopefully.
Remains to be seen. Because, like we said, all 3 of those guys, I think, are locks to make the roster as it currently stands.
At least for week 1, you would think.
Absolutely.
You know, when Judkins gets back, whether that's week 5, 6, 7, 8, however long that suspension ends up being, the presumable suspension, you know, who knows what they end up doing there. Maybe they do carry the 4 running backs. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Now, flipping the switch to tight end here, I think that with Harold Fannin Jr., who they're really high on, had he been to a bigger school, I think he would have even been a second, maybe a late first-round pick, had he not went to Bowling Green. The talent, the athleticism, it's there. Obviously, David Njoku's been consistent and has been around here forever now.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with Njoku is he's going into his 8th or 9th year? 8th year.
9th.
Is it
17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. This is 9th year.
Crazy. And
yeah,
the guy's
it's nuts.
still under 30 years old, I believe.
Yeah, we drafted him when he was 20.
Yeah.
I remember him being a very young draft pick.
So either way, I'm real excited about the opportunities with him and Fanning could create together. And I think you could see what the Browns probably envisioned years ago when they signed Austin Hooper with David Njoku.
Yeah.
That never really panned out. But I think hopefully this time it does. Because I think as we look at it, to me, wide receiver, people are freaking out because they're like, well, what's behind Jerry Jeudy? I don't think it's all that important because I think the top pass catchers on your offense are probably outside of Jerry Jeudy is probably David
Probably the tight
Njoku
ends.
and Harold Fannett.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's all that important, but I also do think, again, as I pointed out when we were previewing this, and I'm going to bounce back to it now, I promised I would, David Bell being on the injury list right now, I think this is the chance for Jamari Thrash, who they drafted last year. This is his big break, and he's got to have a big camp because he's probably, if Bell's not ready to go, he's probably your third receiver.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, how important is that battle really? You know, I mean, you kind of alluded to that too, because if they're running the 12 personnel out there, we might see 3 wide receivers out there like 10 to 15% of the time, realistically.
Right, of the snap count.
So
sure.
yeah, exactly. So I am really looking forward to the Njoku Fannin dynamic there, because like we said, Jerome, right after the draft, and I think we had even previewed Fannin going into that draft as kind of a David Njoku light. Very athletic,
Right.
very athletic profile, great run after the catch, great in traffic, catching in traffic. The question's always for Njoku coming out where his blocking ability, and I would almost argue that that's a bigger strength of his than the pass catching ability now, honestly.
He is a tremendous blocker.
Yeah.
And it's something that the first couple regimes he was under here could not get him to buy into. That's one thing that Stefanski and him, they admitted. Njoku's admitted publicly now, and Stefanski's admitted publicly. Stefanski didn't like Dave, and Dave didn't like Kevin.
Yeah,
when they first got here.
I think when they finally decided to go all in on him as the tight end one, because when they signed Austin Hooper, David Njoku had been here for 3 years already.
Yeah, and he was not happy.
No, and he was a first-round pick. So they signed Austin Hooper. We obviously have him for a couple of years. Pick up the 5th-year option on Njoku. Njoku was not happy about it. Asked for a trade. Didn't get it. And the Browns went all in on him as their tight end one. And I think that almost got him to go all in on becoming an all-around tight end, to be honest with you.
And you're right. And now when you watch a lot of the Browns' run schemes, just watch the way he pushes the pile. He uses his huge body, his huge upper body frame, and he is a hell of a blocker.
Yeah, he
hell
is.
Of a blocker.
He is, and he's always been one of those players too. I'm gonna kind of dog his receiving just a little bit. That we talked about Braylon Edwards back in the late 2000s. With he'll always catch the difficult ones, like that one-hander in the back of the end zone against Tampa Bay, and there's another one in the Snow Globe game. He had dropped a touchdown, but then got the 2-point conversion and like double coverage, landed on his back or whatever.
Yep.
But he'll drop the easy one occasionally, which those ones always frustrate you.
Well, yeah, because Njoku could be running wide open up the seam, nobody within 20 yards of him.
Go right off his face mask.
Exactly, and then and then you watch, especially like some of the gunslinger quarterbacks that he's played with, whether it's been Jameis or Joe
Baker.
Flacco or the two that come to mind, or even Baker, launch it to him in triple or quad coverage, and he comes down with it. It's just like it's the most mind-boggling thing because for 8 years now we've been watching him pull down catches that probably 5% of the league can make, but catches that 95% of the league can make, Dave can't make.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to go back to 2023 one more time, that game in Baltimore. That game-winning drive, the Albatross actually in his post-game press conference basically said, I saw the look in 85's eyes and was like, give me the ball. Like David Njoku had 3 or 4 huge catches on that drive that set up that game-winning field goal. So I mean, when he wants to, man, he can get after it, blocking, receiving. He really has turned into an all-around tight end. And I'm gonna go back because on my standpoint in 2017 with him, I was not a fan of when they drafted him. I wasn't a fan of him really through his first 5 years in the league. I never really became a believer in him. It wasn't until the latter half of his career so far that I really started to buy into him truly being a number one tight end. And still, those drops frustrate me because I feel like at this point in his career, you're almost 30 years old. How many times can you hit the jugs machine before you start actually catching the balls right in your chest?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's something we're always going to have to deal with him. But the other element of him, I think, is that he's really truly developed as, and this was when they to your point, when they invested in him with a contract extension and said, hey, you are our tight end one, he has become a true leader in that locker room, and a true leader on that offense. And I would imagine.
I actually think he should wear a captain's patch this year.
I was getting there. Thank you.
Oh, were you?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to steal your thunder there.
That's fine. But I was going to say, I imagine without Nick Chubb being gone, one of your offensive captains for sure is still going to be Joel.
Yep.
And, Joe, if he's the starter, maybe.
Yeah.
But if not Joe, I could see 85 getting to the C for the first time in his career.
I would actually say the two that I would lock down, if I were picking captains, I would say Joe and Joel. And I think it's not Joe and Joel, I'm sorry, Joel and David. Just because, and I think it's so cool, too, that we drafted those players and they've been here for so long. You know, we haven't been able to say that in so long. Really, the 2017 draft is the one that really kind of turned around to where we're actually drafting players that are here for the long term.
Because you got two of those guys, and one was close to heading out the door.
Garrett.
But you got two of those guys who are going to their 9th year, and that's really cool. And then obviously Joel going into his 12th year.
Yeah.
You know, and which is really cool is Joel Bitonio's taught him everything. Joel's at the point now where he's just like Joe. He ain't going to ever wear another color or another uniform. It's either orange and brown or couch.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and Joel really did try, at least I think so, to take Jed Wills under his wing, and it didn't happen like how he know. And actually, I want a fun fact for you, Jerome. I'm sure you already know this, but maybe our listening audience does not. The 3 first-round picks in 2017, there was Garrett, Njoku, and there was one in between. Do you know who the one is and what he's doing currently?
Oh, Jabril Peppers, and I believe he's still playing safety for the New England Patriots and Coach Mike Vrabel.
He's a rapper.
Oh,
he's got a rapping career now. Unless for some reason I missed that he's still with the Patriots. I'm almost certain that he's trying to have a rap career now.
I believe he was still a pretty productive safety for the Patriots the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's been bad. I mean, he wasn't that bad for the Giants when we traded him in the Odell Beckham deal, and it actually does look like he's still with the Patriots. Huh.
So that's
he is. Yeah, the side hustle is the rap career that he's got going on now.
Well, and God bless him. You know, I thought going back to Brown's draft picks, and we're really going into the weeds here, one that always looked like a good rotational end to me was Chad Thomas, but the guy just cared about rapping more than he ever did about football, because there were sometimes, man, you watch Chad Thomas, like when Garrett would be out for a couple games and he'd have to fill in going back to 2018 and 19. The guy did a hell of a job, but just never – football wasn't it for him.
You know who was another one? He was a 5th-round pick, and I want to say we gave up on him after like a year and a half, and I never understood why, because I always thought he was a decent rotational edge rusher. He was an undersized edge rusher, but he was considered more of a linebacker.
I know where you're going, yeah.
You know where I'm going?
Yeah.
I love Jannard Avery.
Yep, that's exactly
Loved
what I thought.
him.
Yeah.
Loved him, and I thought he had a good rookie year. I thought he was a good rotational guy. Was never going to be a number 1 or a number 2 pass rusher, but a good rotational edge rusher, and he was a decent stand-up linebacker, too. I don't know why they gave up on him so quick. I want to say we drafted him in 2019. I can't remember if that was the Baker draft or if that was...
I believe he was drafted in 2018.
Or if that was the Greedy Williams draft, yeah.
Either way. So that's pretty much it with the Browns, obviously. You know, we're not going to go crazy on this podcast because we've learned our lesson. So should the whole city of when they went undefeated in the preseason. You can't go nuts about these preseason games, but... the way that these guys are all talking, Kevin's been hell-bent on no starters in the preseason. Besides, like, obviously, like, the serious...
the battles.
Older guys. Like, Joel, no preseason. Miles, probably no preseason. David, no. But I would not be shocked if you saw some, like, other vets have to play at least a series or two this year.
Yeah, you would think so. I mean... I remember in 2019, now this is obviously the Freddie Kitchens era, but they like damn near refused to play their starters in the preseason, and they were coming off of a 7-8-1 season, and we went into that off season and that 2019 season in general thinking that we were better than we were, and they crapped the bed. So I would like to see them get some drives in, the starters. You know, you got to get some you got to get some playing time in games before you actually get into the regular season, in my opinion.
I agree with that, but I do think there's a select few guys who I would not. Like Nick Chubb never played the preseason. Kevin was hell-bent on him not. It never made a damn bit of difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're a running back, though, like, holes are holes. You know, like, you're going to burst through them. Like, quarterbacks, you got to go from 1 to 2 to 3.
Myles Garrett, I don't think the preseason does a damn bit of difference for him.
Sure.
He has no business being out there. Joel Bitonio, I mean, the guy's probably going to camp. What the hell is a preseason game? Like, those kind of guys, no. Even David Njoku, like, what the hell is a preseason going to do for him?
I'd like for him to get his drops out of the way in the preseason.
All right, that's a fair point. But, no, I mean, those kind of guys, no. But, like, Jerome Ford, sure, put him out there for a drive.
Yeah.
Like, I think quarterbacks...
Yeah, because what are you losing if he gets hurt, knock on wood? Like... Thank you.
Yeah.
Like if he gets hurt, what are you actually like losing to? Like it's Jerome Ford. Like I'm not trying to throw any disrespect at him at all, but like, all right, yeah, let's throw in Dylan Sampson, let's throw in Pierre Strong, let's I don't think you're losing too much.
Like the one that it's mind-boggling, and I hate even talking about the guy, but like Deshaun Watson had not played in
the Albatross.
Yeah, thank you. And like had not played football in years, like multiple years. And they just were hell-bent on not playing him in the preseason.
They played him against his first ever preseason game back was against Jacksonville in Jacksonville.
No, but I meant that was the year when he first showed up.
Right.
And going into 24, they refused. And then his first year back they did. Going into 23, they refused. And then going into 24, they refused. Like, the guy had not played football in 100 years. Like, put him in the damn game. That one really pissed me off if you can't tell.
No, I obviously can tell that you're very worked up about this. But no, I mean, Deshaun Watson, they just catered. I bet you Deshaun Watson was one of those guys that just told him like he didn't want to play in the preseason. Because,
Yeah.
I don't know how you can let somebody not play football essentially for almost 2 full years and then just like they're not going to play any preseason games. You're going to hop in week 1.
Yeah,
I mean, granted, he did play pretty decent against Cincy week 1 in 2023.
Yeah,
He did.
Last year he was an abomination against Dallas.
Yeah, he was horrible.
I think he
was
sacked
horrible.
like 8 times. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the whole team was pretty bad. I'm not going to say. I mean, he was horrible.
Well,
but
he's done. He's cooked.
Yeah.
Let's talk about hope, and hopefully we got some Flacco fever to talk about in about 7 weeks.
And before we switch topics here, what do you think about the new uniforms dropped earlier today as we're recording Wednesday night?
Yeah, they were fine. That's
Yeah,
literally how I would describe them. Whatever.
Yeah,
I do like the all brown concept. My favorite are like the 2011 all browns.
2013.
Yeah,
That was because they played the Bills Thursday night prime time.
Yeah,
and they beat them to go to 3-2. And boy, did I think the Browns had really had something there. I think they finished the year 4-12.
So yeah, they're fine. Like they're cool. I'm happy they're not wearing them every game. Like it's gonna be cool to see them out there 3 different times. Good for them. They'll make a lot of money. Jimmy will be happy, and that's more importantly. What do you think about the guy falling into the lake at the uniform reveal today?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I saw there was a huge controversy on whether or not he did it for attention or whether it was an accident, and I really don't know. And quite frankly, I mean, I think it's a funny video, obviously, but like whether the Browns intended for that to happen so that he got attention or they got more attention on themselves or whether it was an accident, like I honestly don't care too much.
Yeah, I mean, I even saw Portnoy put out there. He goes, only the Browns could have a uniform reveal, and it just go completely wrong.
Yeah. But I will say, like when it comes to the actual uniforms themselves, the helmet specifically reminds me a lot of those Tennessee alternates with their all black uniforms. It reminds me a lot of those Tennessee alternates, and I didn't like the helmet originally when I saw it, although from what was leaked earlier this week, I'm glad it wasn't those. Those were like an abomination. So this new one, the real one that got released revealed doesn't look too bad. And with the jerseys, I actually think it looks a lot better with the actual jerseys themselves.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, the Browns uniforms to me, I love them. I've always loved the color scheme. A lot of people think it's ugly. Fine, whatever. I grew up with it. I like it. To me, as long as they can do whatever the hell they want with the uniforms, as long as they never wear those uniforms they wore from 2015 to 2019.
Oh my God!
Then I don't really give a
God.
You know what they do with the uniforms.
Those were disgusting. And do you remember how excited the city was when they revealed them because they just had huge Cleveland right across the chest
and then Browns down the pin? They looked like middle school uniforms.
They really did look pretty atrocious. The only thing I actually kind of liked about those uniforms, and they carried them over when we changed the uniforms back in 2020, was the brown face mask. I did like the brown face mask. I liked the white one better, but I thought the brown face mask was better than the gray one.
Yeah, the gray one always looked out of place.
Not on those 2011 Browns, though.
Well, it still did. Yeah, it still did, even though I did love that team. The Colt McCoy led.
The Colt McCoy led to. Yeah, those Browns teams were fun, actually. They were.
So my thing on the uniforms is I'm going to throw it back to a different sport, but use a reference. Same sport, same team, actually, that one of our guests, Phil Yan, used when we were talking about the stadium a couple of years ago. I don't care what, just win some damn games.
Yeah, let's win some games. Let's get ready for the future stadium in 5 years, too.
Let's.
We better be a good team when that stadium, when the stadium actually opens up. They have to be.
They're going to have to be for how much they're going to charge for everything.
Yeah.
And we've gone into that many times, but as Bill Belichick once said, we're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah, we are.
Get ready for week 1.
We're on to Cincinnati. That's right.
I don't care about anything else. We're on to Cincinnati.
We're on to Cincinnati.
Just get there healthy. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. And I'll ask you this now, and I'm probably going to forget about this in the future and then within the next 5 years, but I would like to come back to it at some point. Will Shedeur Sanders be quarterback when the Brook Park Stadium opens?
I'm going to say yes.
I'm saying there's not a shot in hell.
There's
not a shot in hell.
Yeah, I'm saying yes.
You're always, hey, listen, you are one of the bigger optimists of the Browns in the preseason that I've ever since I've known you. We talked about when we were in college, this would have been like 2016, 2017, about, I remember we talked about, I think we're a quarterback away. A couple years, we might be in the playoffs. We were very optimistic. And you said, and Cody Kessler will be the one in the playoffs for us. And I was like, oh, God.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Cody Kessler.
I was having this conversation with
Producer Eric's not. Producer Eric loved Cody Kessler.
He did.
Loved him. And he's a Cincinnati Bengals fan. He was a huge Cody Kessler fan for some reason.
Oh, dude.
Him and Terrell Pryor, he loved them. He loved that duo.
If folks could see Producer Eric over there, he's ecstatic.
There's a flood warning behind the camera.
So anyway, your point about the extreme optimism with me and the Browns in the preseason, we got to move on here.
Yeah, we're over a half hour.
But I do want to finish one thing that I want to point out. One of our high school summer help kids at my work the other day, at my day job, was telling me he's a big Jets fan, and we got into a whole conversation about how kid grew up in New York. Nobody's had it worse than Jets and Browns fans the last quarter century. We went on and on and on, and he says to me, I said, you think the Jets are going to be good? And he said, I don't know. He goes, but by week 1, I always talk myself into it. And I go, boy, me and you both with the Browns. Yep. I said, I sit here right now. I don't think the Browns are going to be good. Boy, by 7 weeks from now, 6.5 weeks from now, week 1, I'm going to be talking myself into, well, if this goes right and that goes right, and,
Yeah. And I will say to your friend, the Browns have undoubtedly had it worse than the Jets. In the last 25 years, the Jets have gone to a few AFC championship games. So
yeah, I think that nobody's had it worse than those two combined. The reason I'll say that is because the Jets do have the longest playoff drought in North American sports right now. Let's just put it this way: neither of them have been any good.
At least in the last 15 years, really. Yeah.
And even before the Jets made those 2 runs with Rex, they were pretty awful.
They were bad, yeah.
So I'd say really since the year 2000, both have just been a dumpster fire. All right, let's move on.
All right.
So let's talk some Guardians, Kevin. 10 out of 12 going into tonight's game, which let's take a look.
Yeah, let's get an update. We got to be at least, I'm going to say, in the 7th inning right now as you're looking at your phone, I would imagine.
I don't know, but 10 out of 12.
Huge.
And again, this is what they should be doing. We covered this last week. You are playing bad teams.
But also, I don't even know. I mean, have you, just looking at this team, I don't know if they really should be doing this, what they're doing over the last 12.
That's true. Okay, they're back. They're tied at 2, and it is the top of the 8th inning.
Top of the 8th.
Tied at 2.
Okay. Hey, maybe by the end of the show, we'll actually know what the result will be.
So anyway, you're talking about a 50-50 ball club. They've worked their way back. Again, the only thing I'm going to credit them for so far is the sweep of the Astros. And that 3-game series alone changed the season.
Yeah. And
this season was heading down towards a 60-some win season, maybe 70 if they were lucky. They figured it out. They put it together, and they said, we're going to go into Houston, sweep them, and that changed everything. Then you go and you take care of the White Sox, 3 out of 4. Then you come home, take care of the A's after the break, 2 out of 3. Now you win tonight. You're talking 3 out of 4 against the
11 out of 13 potentially by the end of the night. And still, even if they don't, they're 10 out of 13, still riding high.
Right. So then you sweep Baltimore tomorrow. It'd be nice to win again today because who sat in this very chair 2 weeks ago and actually even last week and said they have no shot at the division. And I still don't really think they do. But it's making you at least start looking at the scoreboard again. I'm back to where I'm at least willing to open my eyes and look at Tigers scores and see what they did that day. Kevin, the Tigers got swept by the abysmal Pittsburgh Pirates today, who the Guardians did sweep by earlier this year, by the way. They got swept in Pittsburgh, Kevin. The Tigers are 1-9 in their last 10. They are in an awful stretch of baseball. So at least makes you check the scores again, see what's going on. They're probably not winning this division. We're smart enough to know that. But this thing was over. It was done. It was kaput, and now we care again.
It wasn't over.
Yes, it was.
It was okay. Was it? You're saying that it was over, and now you're saying that it's not. So was it ever over? Baseball is a season of stretches. You can never get too high, never get too low. And yes, I did get a little bit low on the 10-game winning streak. I absolutely did. 10-game
winning streak.
10-game losing streak. Excuse me. The other teams were on a 10-game winning streak against us. But it's a season of stretches. So don't get too high, don't get too low. And yes, I got low during the 10-game losing streak, as the entire fan base did. But I never proclaimed that the season was over.
I did.
I know you did.
And here's the thing. They are still not holding any, like, if relatively speaking, as great as this stretch has been, and this is my argument, if things ended today, they have no playoff spot. They have no playoff spot clinched. The thing is over. It was kaput. And as of right now, as great as things have been the last week and a half, it still is over.
But guess what? Guess what? The season does not end today.
I understand that.
They have 60 more games.
But listen, you know as well as I do, I don't care if you play 262 games. When you lose 10 in a row, you put yourself in a really difficult position.
Sure.
To the point where they've had an amazing stretch.
Yeah.
A lot of times that gets you into a position to win something. Well, because they had such a, pardon my French, shitty, awful stretch, now they had to play with their hair on fire just to get back in the damn thing.
Sure, and if they miss the playoffs, we're going to look at that 10-game losing streak specifically as the reason that they did, and it's most likely going to come down to that if they miss the playoffs. Now, if they make the playoffs, guess what we're going to look at? The current stretch that they're on now.
Yes.
The whole season is going to come down to which stretch meant more to the ball club.
I do agree with that, but I'm still going to say this. I don't know how anybody could have watched that 10-game losing streak and didn't think this thing was over. They scored 15 runs in 10 games. But baseball's getting what they want because you add the extra wild card spot and it's made it more interesting for everybody now. The Dodgers are in an awful situation right now. They're losing games left and right. It's really weird in baseball because you got super good, like the Brewers are hot as can be right now. But again, I'm just going to make my point that I thought this thing was over, and I think it was fair to say it was over.
I'm going to tell you this right now, and I'm not going to knock on wood because this is going to happen soon. In the next 2 to 3 weeks, they are going to lose 3 or 4 in a row. The Guardians are going to.
Yeah, they probably will.
They're going to. I'm telling you, they're going to right now. In the next 3 weeks, it's going to happen. The season will not be over.
All right.
Unless within these next 3 weeks that they win like 10 out of 25 or something like that, and they don't actually. But at some point, they're going to lose a few games in a row, and we have to remember to look back on the stretch that they're on now, and that the bats will eventually get hot again. The bats are going to get cold again. It's what's going to happen. It's a season of stretches. This is what happens.
I'm gonna also defend myself here for a second.
Yeah, please.
The 10-game losing streak. Now, if you have any hope of making the postseason, you have to play 650 to 700 ball the rest of the way. You can't afford another even 3 to 4 game losing streak. You can't, because you put yourself in a position where you've made it impossible to do that.
Well, then the season's over right now because they are going to lose 3 or 4 games in a row at some point later this year. It might be in 10 games. It might be in 15 games. It might be in 20 games. They are going to have a stretch where they lose 3 or 4 games in a row.
Well, the only thing you could hope for is everybody else in the American League wild card chase loses 3 or 4 in a row.
That's what's been happening. That's what's been happening. They've been in the thick of it. Even during the 10-game losing streak, they were never out of it.
Well, they got down to like 8.
They were out of the division.
They got out to like 9.5 below the wild card. They were pretty much cooked. But,
no, they weren't. They were not cooked because they're right back in it.
You said they were cooked too. And I remember we were at an establishment that many of the listening audience has probably been to that happens to be right across from the center field gate. Most of you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say their name because they never gave us a penny. We were at that establishment. They have a pretty large patio out there, and most of you know what I'm talking about again. I was there with my dad, you, our listeners and good friends of ours, Kyle, Robbie, Dave, my cousin.
Your cousin,
happened
your
to
cousin
be
was there, yeah.
My cousin Jack. We all sat there that day and proclaimed the thing to be done, over.
Jerome, I never once said that the season was over.
You did.
I just said that I never said it 2 minutes ago, and you had no.
You did. You said
I
it was
never
over.
said the season was over.
I'm standing my ground on this
All
one.
right,
It didn't
stand your
happen on the
ground.
air, but
Stand your ground.
we all said the thing was over. We all did.
Okay, I mean, this is a game of he said, she said. You want to do this for the next 20 minutes?
I could go about this all day. I don't know how the listeners would like it. Producer Derek would probably mute my mic, but I could tell you said the season was over.
No. I mean, I definitely was panicking and said that they have to turn it around ASAP. But I don't think at game 85 I was saying that the season was over. That doesn't sound like me.
Well, hey, sometimes we all do things out of character, man.
Yeah, sure.
You might have had it slip that day because you did.
Okay. I guess we'll leave that to the listening audience. Why don't you comment whether I said it or not, whether you believe I said it or not.
They weren't there.
Whether you think I said it or not, if it seems like something I would say.
All right. Well, anyway.
Actually, you know what? Robbie, Kyle, Dave, Jack, if you guys are listening, comment whether or not I said this. Seriously.
All right. Fair enough.
We have to.
All right. I want to know what people think. All right. So anyway, let's talk about the team a little bit more.
Please.
Obviously, the offense has been a big part of it, and one guy we kind of hit on a little bit last week. We got to keep going. Brian Rocchio looks like a totally different player.
Yeah, playoff Rocchio is back.
Yeah, since coming back from Columbus, he looks like night and day. Now, what Andre Knott says, who is pretty plugged in with the team, one of their hitting coaches over the All-Star break, Jason Esposito, decided to leave up abruptly in the middle of the season and decided to go to Vanderbilt, prestigious baseball university, and take the hitting coach job there. Good for him. But this allowed the opportunity for Junior Betances to come be an assistant hitting coach on the big league club. Many of the Latin American players on the Cleveland Guardians and Dominican players and have said that Junior Betances was their favorite coach in the minor leagues. This is a big deal. Brian Rocchio, a lot of people were saying that Junior Betances' move to the majors is potentially why he could be doing what he's doing. I don't know that for a fact, but Jose Ramirez has been also a guy who credited Junior Betances with changing his entire career. So him being on the big league staff might just be the secret sauce they needed.
Was Junior Betances on the playoff staff last year?
No.
Then I don't know if I buy it. Real. I mean, I can. Somebody that you're comfortable with, comfortable working with, I get there's a comfortability there. You feel more comfortable going up to the plate. You've been working with them recently. I get that. But, there's still no explanation then for what Brian Rocchio did in the postseason last year.
No, unless he spent every single off day with Junior Betances if the minor league seasons were complete. I don't know. All I know is I do love what Brian's doing, and I don't really give a blank if Gabe Arias comes off the injured list or not. Brian Rocchio's got to be my shortstop right now.
Yeah, the rest of the year, I think he's earned that.
And if Vogt tries to mess that up, I'm going to be very angry.
I think he's earned that because, Gabriel Arias hasn't had a stretch like this the entire year.
No. And so a couple other things that we got to touch on the current roster. Jose's on fire right now. Manzardo seems to be on fire. Especially this Orioles series, and then David Fry is starting to show a few signs here and there. Of course, he's still only hitting 160, so it's hard to really get too excited. But there's guys that are hitting, and this is what they probably expected at the beginning of the year. Another guy who's absolutely on fire and probably the third best hitter on the team right now, Angel Martinez, is
phenomenal.
Just scorching.
Raking.
Yes. All right, so with all that being said, whether the season was over or not, that we'll never know, whether Kevin proclaimed it or not. I did, but I'm giving it a chance. It still very well may be over. But, Kevin, they've put themselves in the position. Obviously, ownership is beyond furious right now because to me it looks like they might have to buy. And ownership hates buying. Ownership was praying for a sell-off.
Yeah, I mean, they are in a weird spot right now because do you buy, do you sell, do you hold at the deadline?
Yes. As the great Baldwin Wallace University professor Kevin Jakes once said, "Do you buy, sell, or hold?"
Yeah, you never had him, by the way. Me and guest of the show, Phil Sprons, had him for a few classes. So yeah, he did. He always asked that question. He did when we went over stocks in class. So
he needs to go ask Chris.
Do you want what I would do, or do you want me to say what I think they're going to do?
Give me both. Let's hear
Okay.
both.
So if I were the Guards, I think the only piece I would actively look to sell right now would be Carlos Santana, and I'm not saying that to spite what I'm saying, because he's such an older player. He hasn't been amazing. He's been obviously a great defensive first baseman. He hasn't been amazing at the plate this year.
He's in a horrible stretch right now. Even I could say that.
Right. So that would be a player that I would look to sell, just because I don't think you really lose too much, at least on the field. Maybe in the clubhouse you do lose a lot. I could see that for sure. Other play. I mean, I think I probably would try to go after a corner outfielder, especially with the injury now to Chase DeLauder. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, is it?
Yeah, he's done for the year.
He's done. There's no shot of him coming back up here. So I would probably go after a corner outfielder, but I don't know if I would do much else, because I don't know what else we can really do. I think a lot of positions are solidified. I shouldn't say solidified, but I think a lot of positions for Stephen Vogt are solidified.
In their mind.
In their mind.
Office's mind,
yes. A lot of positions in their mind are solidified. I think that's just an area that they need to attack. They've had to attack. We were hoping that they would attack it in the offseason, and they still haven't attacked it. Well, I guess they did with Nolan Jones.
That's been an outright disaster.
So that would be really the only move I would look to make. There's no names that stick out across the MLB that stick out to me as to somebody that seems like an obvious candidate to go after. So what I think that they're going to do, I think they're going to hold. I don't think they're going to really do anything. I don't think they're going to buy. I think there's going to be a little bit of a power struggle between management and the ownership on whether they should buy or sell, and they're not going to actually get to a conclusion, and the roster's going to stay pretty much the exact same.
All right, I think both of those are fair takes. I'm right in your boat. I don't think they're going to do this because of how well Tyler Freeman's hitting. I think I would try to sell Nolan Jones for a bag of baseballs if I could. It's been a total disaster, him coming back here. I don't see them doing that because they're going to be too afraid to admit their mistake of bringing him back, and it was another failed trade by the front office.
There are worse players on the team, though.
Sure there are.
Than Nolan Jones.
We have multiple guys who hit under 200. Yeah, no, there are. But that was one of their big offseason acquisitions, as you pointed to.
Yeah, no, that was
else.
the big acquisition, really.
Right. That and Santana. I would try to move Nolan Jones. I don't see them doing that. The only thing, and this is not me being biased, this is me trying to look at it through my universal lens, honestly. The only thing about trading Carlos Santana is I don't trust anybody else on this roster to play first base. Kyle Manzardo's awful at it. Are you really going to call
Kafis?
Are you going to call Kafis up? Do you? How good are his defensive abilities? That's the big question.
Sure.
That we don't know the answer to.
And this is another potential solution, but it's not one that I don't think anybody in the entire fan base would be happy with. But Arias has some first base experience.
It's been years, though. I don't see them doing that.
I know, but I'm saying he does have some. They could probably try to justify it to themselves.
Right. I agree that they could. I hope they don't. That's the one thing where I think the two things that why they might hold Santana too are the veteran clubhouse presence, leadership, been here forever, and defensively. But that's also a position that you need more offense than he's giving you, and that's a totally fair take by you to say that.
Yeah, and that's the battle that they've had with Manzardo and Santana. They've been basically polar opposites this year, with Manzardo providing a pretty decent bat. Not amazing. Obviously, there's nothing really amazing in this lineup outside of Jose and Angel, really, when it comes to the bats right now, and Quan, obviously, when it comes to the bats. The thing is, the other day, and I got frustrated, Manzardo was having a heck of a game, and they put a left-handed pitcher in against him, and they immediately substitute him out. This is Vogt. This is Vogt again. We've touched on this before about how he's not obsessed with the matchup game. Yes, the hell you are, and I'm sick of every single guy that he thinks is a platoon player, but we don't know if they are because we've never seen them go up against another frickin'
and
another left-handed pitch
to
batter.
Jump off that point to piggyback off of it. Kyle Manzardo at the beginning of the year before David Fry came back was hitting left-handed pitching pretty well. You know, so we'll see. I mean, I think you're probably right. I could see them doing absolutely positively nothing. Maybe getting a low, like another bullpen arm because those always seem to get tossed around constantly at the deadline. But I don't see them adding anything to the lineup. And the other thing why I don't see them really moving Santana is what they value for him is the defense in the clubhouse. And, I mean, yeah, he's in a horrible slump right now, but he still is like second or third in RBI. I think he's second in RBIs. He's like fourth in home runs. Like, that's not really a compliment to him. That's more of to show how bad the offense has been.
Well, and I think
he has like 11 home runs and 45 RBIs.
Well, and I think there's 3 players you look at on this team that you can really look at and say if they're in a slump, I trust them to get out of it. And it's Quan, Ramirez, and Santana because Santana's been doing it for so long. So at some point he's going to end up getting out of it. You know, whether it's still with us or not, who knows? But he will get out of this slump, obviously.
Absolutely. And then the other thing with that too is, I mean, I don't know what if you're so hell bent on trading him. And I'm not saying you. I'm saying
the team in general.
Yeah, the organization. What the hell is a 39-year-old first baseman really going to net you in return? Like a low A ball prospect?
And the low A prospect's probably going to be 24 or 25 and basically on the way out if you can't make it. Like, that's what you're going to get for him.
Yeah, you're not like anybody who's like, oh, you could trade Carlos Santana and upgrade the that's not happening. Like, you're not upgrading the offense. Like,
no, you can't.
There's just no chance of that happening. So that's where I think they are. Obviously, next week's show will be right up against deadline, so maybe they'll have done something or not done something, or we'll have rumors and we'll dive.
Maybe we'll have a couple moves across the league that we'd be able to at least discuss. Because what is it? Thursday evening?
Yes,
or Thursday afternoon?
The 31st.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that next week. One more thing that we're going to touch on here about this franchise is. And we're not trying to get political. Let's put that out there right off the bat.
Yeah.
The president of the United States has decided that he thinks people want to hear from him on this issue. Whether some do or don't, I personally don't. Producer Derek doesn't. Kevin, I don't really think does all that much either. He decided to throw his opinion around on a Sunday morning and say that the team needs to go back to being called the Cleveland Indians. He decided to say that he's not going to give the Washington football team money unless they change it back to the Redskins. Now, obviously, this is a president who tends to like being in front of a microphone. The organization, pushed it aside right away. Chris Antonetti had a statement immediately.
Yeah.
Now, look. Are there still a lot of people who listen to this show and even in the overall Cleveland fan base and folks who listen to this program who want them to go back to the Indians? I'm positive there is. But I'm going to be, maybe you guys haven't heard this. Maybe I'll be the first to say it ain't going to happen. We talk extensively about how cheap this ownership is. They spent $12 million for marketing, imaging, and all that to change this name. They ain't spending $12 million to change it back.
Would have rather had a corner outfielder for that money.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. But obviously people have it's grown on a lot of people, the name.
Yeah, it's just something you get used to over time.
Yeah, it's been 4 years.
It's weird at first. It's honestly like, I don't want to say it's second nature, but like, it doesn't sound weird hearing it anymore like it once did. You just get used to the sound of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes part of everyday life, you know? And there's a lot of people who still obviously do want that to happen. I don't think it's ever going to happen. Now, I know some people who want it to happen are holding out hope. Well, maybe Blitzer wants to change. No, I don't think that's going to happen either.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Who's Blitzer work for right now, guys? Paul Dolan. It's not going to happen.
Well, okay, but at some point he's going to take over majority ownership, and he's not going to work for him. That's the point. I think that's the other side of that point.
Right, which could be a fair point. I still don't. I don't know David Blitzer from Adam, but I don't see him doing that. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe he does.
Yeah, I
do that.
don't see him doing that either.
I mean, look, and people have maybe not the initial like Guardians reveal. People really have bought into the City Connect. And
Yeah, I love the City Connect jerseys, and I actually think that the alternate logo from it with the Guardian
statue.
the Guardian statue, I think that should be the primary logo for the Guardians. The only thing that I would change is at the very top, the curve that says Guardians over top of it. I would just change that to Cleveland. It's a very minute detail,
Yes.
but like that's the only thing I would change about it. But I think that actually that represents the name of the team, and it would represent the city better than just like the letter G with a ball inside of it with wings. Like
Yeah.
that is like the worst logo in sports.
If they're gonna make another uniform change or logo change or whatever image change, the only thing I see it getting changed to is
that primarily?
yes. Now I did see that Channel 19 conducted a poll of like 52 people going to the game the other night, and like 40 of them were like, "I'd change it back to Indians." Listen,
It's about 80%. That's a very small sample size.
right, it's a super small sample size. And who were you polling? You know, what ages? Because obviously,
Yeah, what demographics?
right, folks who are a little bit older, I can understand it. They were the Indians for majority of your life. Folks like me and you, yeah, they
Still
were
the majority of
still
our
the
lives.
majority of our lives, but we're younger, so we're probably more prone to adapting to change. I mean, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I think I pretty much got all my thoughts out. Did you?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to honestly take a poll across the city, I think most people would prefer the name Indians just because it's something that we grew up with, and obviously, like you mentioned, the older generation, you know, people that are 40 plus specifically. I think you might even get 80% of the people in that demographic to want to change back to the Indians, and you know, people 30 and under. It might be the opposite. It might be 60-40 in favor of Guardians, you know. So I think if you were to pull the entire city as a whole, though, I think probably 60+% would probably be in favor of having Indians as opposed to Guardians. But, like, how many people take it that serious enough to go protesting in the streets and want a name change?
Right.
And that's all that, like, the thing is, it's the baseball team in Cleveland. They wear the same colors. It's not like they did an entire rebrand. I mean, they rebranded, but they didn't change the colors. It's still the red, white, and blue that we grew up cheering for. It's still basically the same exact uniforms with just a different name across the chest that looks very similar.
It's the same script as
The
it was.
same script that it was. So it's really not that different at all to me when going to the stadium and cheering for them. The only thing that's different, again, is the sign above
The left field
above the
scoreboard.
left field scoreboard that says Guardians, but that also looks very similar to the way that they had India. Like the way that they rebranded, if they were forced to rebrand, which they kind of were, kind of weren't. It's kind of a gray area in terms of whether they were forced to or not, in my opinion.
I agree.
I think they went about it the right way in terms of what they rebranded to and how they rebranded. They picked a name that was very similar to Indians. It sounds very similar. You know, they have the DIANS at the end.
Right.
The Dians, the apostrophe Dians. So, like, if you want to call them that, then do it, you know. But, like I said, red, white, and blue. I think they, like, the whole rumors of them changing to the Cleveland Spiders and stuff, I don't think it would have worked as well.
No, I think, honestly, if you were forced to, which obviously that's a gray area.
And they made it like something that was symbolic to the city. And,
Yes.
and like I said, you can argue whether or not it's Indians versus Guardians, what you prefer. And quite frankly, like, I'll be honest, like, I would prefer Indians. It's what I grew up with. I remember the World Series, the playoff runs, the players that I went earlier, like, that's what I remember, and that's what made me fall in love with baseball. I would prefer that name. I'm not going to go.
To be perfectly honest.
I'm not going to go marching in the streets about it, though. I'm going to cheer for the Cleveland Guardians, and that's going to be that. I'm going to buy the occasional Guardians gear.
Yes.
I'll buy the Diamond C hat. I'll buy the City Connect stuff. Like, it's my team in my city that I'm rooting for. Like,
yeah, it's my baseball team that I've loved my whole life. What am I going to change loving for?
Yes.
And, you know, you have people who are super against it argue that, well, attendance has dropped off. No, it hasn't. They drew 2 million last year, and they're well on their way to drawing 2 million this year. I mean, they're drawing better crowds now than they were their last couple of years as the Indians.
The last couple of years of the Indians, were they or were they not during COVID?
Well, 2019 would have been their last. I guess 2019 would have been their last normal year per se as Indians.
Yeah.
So no, I listen.
Yeah.
It's not going to change back. Obviously, we both prefer it. You know, if it did, I mean,
It hasn't stopped us from going to games.
But
It stopped you from paying for games, but it wasn't it wasn't due to the name change. It was due to the performance on the field.
Yeah. I mean, like I said this the other day to my dad. We were having this conversation. I said, I'll be quite frank. I said, I don't give a bleep what they call themselves. I go, give me a right fielder who can hit 25 and drive an 80 and hit 260, and you could call yourselves the Cleveland Crappers for all I care. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know,
and this might be a little bit controversial for me to say. It may or may not be, honestly, but like Chief Wahoo is one of my favorite logos in sports history. You know, like on my way down to the basement growing up, my dad had made this. He literally made a sign from scratch of Chief Wahoo, painted it, everything, hanging in the basement. You know, one of the first things that you would see on the way down to the basement, where I had, my video games set up and everything like that. It was like the first thing that I saw. You know, we had all of the Cleveland Indians stadium pictures, some of like the little bobbleheads of Chief Wahoo and stuff like that. Like, it was a huge part of growing up. So like,
yes, absolutely. I have very similar stuff. I have all kind of Chief stuff. You know, I still do have that stuff, and I'm not getting rid of that stuff.
Yeah,
it's part of what they were, and you can't.
Well, it's part of our history too.
It's absolutely part of our history and part of their history. They were the Indians for well over 100 years. Okay, whatever you want to call it, the Cleveland baseball
and
franchise,
well into our early to mid 20s, early 20s.
Just fresh news into the studio here. They did just win though.
Let's go.
They have officially won 11 out of 13.
Woo!
They've won 3-2 tonight. Quan with an go-ahead RBI single in the 8th. Class A 1-2-3 in the 9th.
There we go, baby.
Former Cleveland baseball player
Ramon
Laureano struck out for the
feeling.
final out. So,
he had a good game against us the other day, too.
Yeah, he did hit a 450-foot home run off Bobby. All right, one last thing, Kevin. No news on Ortiz. I don't know if I think this is probably more of a bad thing, but one way or the other, it'd be nice if they came out with something.
Yeah, I did.
And ownership's not happy because it's still paid leave.
Well, they did say that they're extending the deadline until the end of August, which, we're coming up. This happened basically a week ago. It was last Friday, so 6 days before the episode is dropping. So we're almost a week late on actually being able to talk about this. But they extended the deadline to the end of August. And for me, I saw a bunch of mixed things on social media about whether this was a good or bad sign, and my takeaway is that it's a good sign, at least for the Tribe right now, because if they haven't suspended him or anything, we've seen them drop the hammer what seems like within a few days of stuff like this dropping.
Yeah.
And if they're extending this like a month and a half, they couldn't have found too much so far. Seriously.
They might be struggling to find evidence.
Yeah, like that's my takeaway from it, at least just from the outside looking in at it. Like, I feel like if they would have seen something by now, we would have heard at least some sort of punishment being handed down to them. And like you said, Jerome, it's paid leave. Like if it was non-paid, maybe it's like, okay, maybe they did find at least something. Yeah. But it's paid leave for a month and a half.
Yeah. So
I'll have to get with my employer and talk to him about that.
And the other thing with that, though, that does suck for the Guardians, though, is Ortiz is probably not going to be able to pitch again this year because he'd have to work himself up at this point. You hope that he's somewhere working out right now, but, I mean, there's nothing like in-game reps.
I would think he is. I would think right. Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's get to odds and ends and wrap this program up for this evening. And let's start with a couple of AFC North pass rushers that aren't Myles Garrett, probably the second and third best behind him in my respective opinion.
I think that's a fact, I would say.
And that's TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson. Watt gets the big money. He does just barely pass Garrett. Trey Hendrickson did not report and put an Instagram story of himself in Florida. So the fact that he's left town in Cincinnati, things aren't looking good.
Well, things are ugly in Cincinnati because you could argue their two best pass rushers. Granted, the one hasn't stepped foot on the field yet, but he's a first-round pick. They were probably relying on him to be the number 2 pass rusher. Shamar Stewart still hasn't come to terms on his contract negotiations. So two huge edge rushers in Cincinnati that aren't reporting, and it's because the owner, much like the Dolans, who we just talked about, cheap as heck.
Yeah, Mike Brown, him and Paul Dolan are probably good buddies. They like to run the thing very similar style. The Roonies had no problem giving Watt money, though. 3 years, higher AAV than Myles, of course.
Yeah, a little bit over 120 total, I want to say.
What he's going for.
Yeah.
This doesn't surprise me. This got done. I can't see Watt ever playing for anybody else.
Yeah, me either.
So
I thought it was only a matter of time before that deal got done. It seemed like the Steelers weren't willing to look at a trade for him, and he wanted his money. So it seemed like it was inevitable that this was going to happen. So it doesn't surprise me too much.
Right. I wish the Miles saga could have happened like the TJ. It was pretty quiet and not much headlines. But unfortunately, we both came to the same solution with our superstar pass rushers. Ours just happened to be a lot more of a saga, if you will.
Yeah, it was absolutely a saga. That's how I would classify it as well.
All right, Tyrese Proctor, dominant in Cavs Summer League. Don't know what it really means, but good to see him be dominant rather than suck.
Yeah, I saw him drop a few 30 burgers out there, and obviously that's not... It doesn't directly correlate to the NBA floor immediately, but it was good to see him out there with a lot of the other rookies, a lot of first-round picks that he was competing with as well. You know, for him being a late second-rounder, going in there and having a good showing. Seems promising.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of domination, Scotty Scheffler just made the British Open Sunday not even really watchable. He was just so far ahead of everybody else. I'm going to go ahead and say it. It's not Tiger, but it's the closest thing I've seen since, and with one player dominating the sport like this.
Yeah, it's impressive. And obviously, I've been pretty late coming to the golf world. You know, last year was really the first year I started to actually get into the sport itself, playing and watching. And I had happened to turn on the Open last week at one point, and had seen that he was up by 5 strokes or down by 5 strokes, wherever you want to look at it. But he was winning by 5 strokes, I guess I should say, and it was like the 14th or 15th hole, and everybody else was like -11, -10, -10, -10, and he was -16. I'm like, oh my God, this is over already.
Yeah, I mean, when he came out on Friday, and he took the lead back from Matt Fitzpatrick, and he was only up by 1 stroke. A guy who I work with had mentioned to me, he goes, it's over. And I go, Scheffler's only up by 1, though. He goes, but if you saw the way he's played on Friday, I said, I did a little bit. He goes, nobody's going to touch that the rest of the weekend if he keeps that up. He ended up being right. And, yeah, Scheffler now 2 Masters, a PGA, and a Open Championship. So the only one he has left for the Grand Slam would be the U.S. Open, which
he'll get.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did someday. And you never know, though. Look how long it took Rory.
Yeah.
Rory had the other 3, and sometimes that 4th one. For Rory, it was Augusta. For Scotty, it's going to maybe the U.S. We'll see. But, again, to put go back to last decade, it's not Tiger's stretch, and I'm not going to compare it to it, but it's the closest thing we've seen to Tiger's stretch of one player dominating the sport like this. So
I believe you.
All right, that'll do it for this week's show. We went a little bit over. I hope that you were still interested to stay with us all the way to the end. And if you do, when you listen to this episode, we thank you very much. And if you do, we're going to ask you to do something else too, and that's give us a thumbs up and give us a subscribe and a like and all that. We'd appreciate it. Derek would, Kevin would, and I would as well. You can follow us on social medias. We're on the X and the Instagram and
TikTok.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At CLE Sports Realm. Then you can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. That's it. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Go Tribe.